I chose the topic poaching because I think it's interesting to learn about things that aren't exactly occurring around us or in our local scope. When most people think about poaching, they think about Africa, where elephants and rhinos are from. Of course, we don't have elephants or rhinos around us, but I think it's still important to learn about this topic and how, even from Troy, Missouri, we can still help stop this problem. How does this affect us? Well, here locally, we aren't exactly directly affected by poaching, as we don't have large species such as elephants or rhinos running around. But in places such as Africa or Thailand, removing a species from its habitat in an unnatural way and over-exploiting that species really puts a dent in the ecosystem. It puts a dent in the food chain and the diversity of that ecosystem. How did poaching first begin? Poaching has been illegal for hundreds of years, but it first started in the Middle Ages. Only those of high status were allowed to hunt, legally of course, because it was seen as a privilege. Poaching really began in the 1700s. As populations began increasing, people looked to hunting just to survive. But of course, after they provided for their families, they became greedy. They started over-exploiting these animals and selling them on the black market. There's no real point source as to what started poaching or who started poaching. But with the low abundance of food, although it was illegal, things only escalated from there. Poaching does not only affect the population of a species, it affects the whole diversity of an ecosystem. It affects how all species and organisms work together just to maintain their stable environment. How does poaching affect elephants? This graph shows how from 2009 to 2014, elephant populations were affected in different countries. For example, in Zimbabwe, for 2009 there was 80,000 elephants in Zimbabwe. But once you look at 2014, only roughly 30,000 elephants exist. It can be said that in a 5-year span, 50,000 elephants had been lost to poaching. How does poaching affect animals? Well, all organisms work together to maintain their stable environment, and when one organism is removed, the rest of them suffer. For example, elephants. Elephants eat leaves off of trees and they provide food for lions. Well, if the elephant population is decreased, so does the lion population, as they have nothing to eat now. Which leads us to plants. How does poaching affect plants? You may think, well, removing a natural predator from their ecosystem would help the plants grow, but it actually harms the ecosystem. Plants will continue to grow rapidly, stripping the soil of nutrients, especially nutrients that is needed by other plants to grow. These plants will continue to grow until a predator is introduced. Well, that predator would have to be non-native, as their natural predator was removed, and this can only cause more issues. Poaching is a good way to spread food-borne illnesses. With this act being illegal, animal meat sold as food is not thoroughly inspected or monitored by the government programs. Poachers do not care to check their meat to ensure that it is safe for our consumption. It's all about the profit that they make off of these animals. Another effect poaching has on humans is the depletion of our natural resources. Natural resources are important for clothing, getting proper nutrients, and curing diseases. When you remove an organism from an ecosystem, resources are put at risk because this organism is relied on to spread it and maintain it. In the carbon cycle, animals are essential for this process. Animals release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, which is then taken in by plants. Plants release oxygen in return. As the carbon cycle goes on, animals begin to die. This results in decomposition. During decomposition, the carbon is released into the soil, which then forms fossil fuels. Without animals, the carbon cycle would not function properly, and the abundance of carbon dioxide in the air would not be enough for plants to take in. In the phosphorus cycle, animals take in phosphorus by consuming plants. As most animals that are highly poached are herbivores, they take in high amounts of phosphorus. They are then hunted on by carnivores, which then take in the phosphorus that they had consumed and provide those organisms with the phosphorus they need to create their DNA. Phosphorus is also added to the soil through the process of urination and decomposition. Without organisms to take in this phosphorus and provide it to other organisms through predation, many organisms would not have the nutrients essential to grow. What is being done to solve this issue? Anti-poacher patrols are trained to watch over large herds of organisms and be aware of how many organisms are in that herd. In the event that a poacher is encountered, rangers are trained to make shooting to kill their last resort, as it is much easier to catch a poacher and learn their poaching routes than to kill them. In this chart, though, it can be clearly seen that these methods of stopping poaching have not been very effective. What else can be done to solve this issue? Although there are many sanctuaries in the United States, bringing sanctuaries to Missouri could also be beneficial, as we do not have any here. Bringing these animals into sanctuaries would allow them to grow and reproduce at a successful rate and not have to worry about poachers driving them into extinction. There are many positive impacts that this solution could have on Missouri, as it brings these animals to us and allows us to learn more about what they do for us from all the way across the world. But some negative impacts that it could have is the thought that removing these animals from their natural habitat only makes things worse, and that problems should be solved in their native countries. Just like any other solution, this should be taken into serious consideration. A known issue is that whenever you remove an organism from its environment, the rest of the ecosystem suffers. Although these organisms would be removed for the benefit of themselves, it could also negatively affect other organisms. Another issue may be the funding of a sanctuary in Missouri, as some believe that the poaching crisis in other countries does not affect us here, as well as the fear that bringing wild animals from all the way across the world can be very dangerous. A personal action plan that I could have is reaching out to my community and notifying them of the crisis that is going on and how it is affecting even us in Missouri here. I could also create flyers and notify higher ranked government officials to show them the importance of this issue and why we should get involved to help.